All right, so another viewer reached out asking, what do we do after we jump, both at home and at the shows? So, great topic, great question. We've done a number of things over the years, but for the past, 8 years, we've been very stable in what we've done. So, let's talk about it. First, a little bit of whiskey. So, this is I.W. Harper. It's an interesting label because I.W. Harper is an old brand that was resurrected. And on the label, it says Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, I.W. Harper Distilling Company. But then when you rotate to the back, it says bottled by the I.W. Harper Distilling Company of Tullahoma, Tennessee. So what I guess is happening here is that it is distilled, barreled, and aged in Kentucky to follow the Kentucky Straight Bourbon regulations. And then that whiskey, though, is owned by a company in Tennessee. So it is Kentucky bourbon, but the company that makes it or runs the company is in Tennessee. But doesn't matter. From Kentucky, doesn't matter. Let's do it. So it has this older type nose to it that is a little bit musky. If you've ever been into a rick house, an old-time rick house, there's this musky note. And it's very much like that. And then kind of like old wood, not like freshly sawn wood, but like old, little bit moldy, little bit, but it's been there for a long time. It's a different note. Yeah, so the palate's a bit softer. There's not that much softer, almost like a Tennessee whiskey, but not that far. It's a little bit softer on the tannin note on the palate. It does have a little bit of sourness on the palate. That's not a negative, because I feel like too much sweet is also a negative. So it's a nice bit of sour, which you could also guess from the muskiness on the nose. Again, musky is not a bad thing. But it's a smooth, subtle, easy drinking whiskey. I like it. It's not going to break the bank. I think the bottle's under $30. That's easy to find. But yeah, it won't be everyone's flavor, but it doesn't need to be. If you like it, then great. I think for that type of flavor profile, yeah, I like it. All right. Let's talk about what we do after we jump our horses. But before we start, I think the biggest place to start is a more encompassing framework. When you're at home, you shouldn't do as much as you do at the show, post-jumping. I know that sounds weird, but let's say you're flatting and jumping at home and you ice twice after, you poultice, you wrap, you do other therapies, you do all of this stuff after every time you jump at home. Then you go to the show, what more can you do? Because you've already done all of it. And, for me, I never jump as high or as much at home as I do at the show. So if to keep my horse going, I have to do all these things at home, I have nothing else when I go to the show. So for me, big thing, don't do everything at home. When I jump, if I'm jumping a meter 10, I jump 20 fences, we won't ice, we won't poultice, we won't wrap. Because if we have a problem doing that, we need to know that. And I don't want the ice, poultice, and wrapping to cover up any issues jumping 1 meter 20 times. So that's a big thing to start. Okay, one more thing, I promise, before we get to what we do. Let's talk about icing. There's plenty of different ways to ice. I love the horse spas, the equine spas. They're saltwater. The water's cold, very cold. And that, in my opinion, is the best way to ice the legs, is a saltwater spa. Because the salt and the Epsom salt has a greater impact on top of just the cold. So I highly recommend that. But if you can't do that, we obviously use ice boots as well when we can't put them in a spa. And it's very hard to find the right ice boot. So this is the ice boot we use. It's all Velcro on the back. On the inside is blue. The big thing with this is that when it's cold, it is still squishy, because a lot of ice boots, just like ice, it gets hard when it freezes. That sounds okay, but the problem is if it's hard, then you don't have maximum contact with the limb that goes in it. So you'll only have little points that are touching the leg. So cool, those points are really cold, but those points are only touching 20% of the horse's leg. That's a problem. So the boot, when cold, needs to still be squishy to a degree. Then these boots on top of that have a little air port. So you strap them on, and then you have an air port, and you blow them up with air to force them against the leg. Another thing we do before we ice is we get the leg wet. We do that because that will quickly thaw a lot of this surface ice you see here, and that will allow for better contact on top of just blowing them up with air. So again, what's important with the ice boot is that it's squishy when it's squishy, not hard when it's frozen, and you have good contact. Doesn't matter how cold it is if you have no contact. Okay, after we show, the biggest thing to note is timing. It doesn't matter what you do if the timing is wrong. So what I mean by that is, if you have a class, you go at 8:15 in the morning. If the horse is iced, poulticed, and wrapped at 3:30 in the afternoon, well then the horse has had that much time in between when they show and when they're iced, poulticed, and wrapped. If I have a morning class, what we'll do is we'll ice, poultice, and wrap in the morning, then we will undo that later in the day and then re-wrap them, because timing is everything. After the horse comes out of the ring, they first get the Platinum Renew paste that we use. I highly recommend. They get that as soon as they come out of the ring. Then they walk back to the barn, tack off into the stall, enough time to pee if they're going to pee. Then they leave the stall, they go get bathed, and then they get iced. And that happens very rapidly. And it needs to, because you need those ice boots to get on as quickly as possible after the event, the exercise, the output, the show. Then after the icing, we only ice for about 17 minutes. The reason why is your body as a human and the horses will, after about 17, 19 minutes, the body will recognize that that area is cold. And so the body's natural response is to send more blood there. So then the blood vessels will open up, trying to ship more blood to that area, which is undoing the reason why you're icing. So you, instead of icing for longer, what you do is you ice for 17, 18 minutes, 2-hour break, 17, 18 minutes, 2-hour break, and you do it in stages. You don't get double the effect by going from 17 minutes to 34 minutes. That's not how it works. After icing, they go back in the stall for a little bit of rest. Then they come back out and we poultice them. Poultice is a clay with water and some electrolytes, effectively an electrolyte, but salt. And we put the poultice on, then a paper around it, and then we do a standing wrap. Standing wraps are amazing, but you have to know how to do it because you can cause problems if you wrap the wrong direction, you pull too hard, you don't pull enough. It's important to do that right. One note on poultice that's really important is you have the horse's leg and you take your poultice in your hand and you go like this, you rub it down. It sounds fine, but the hair is pointing down. So if you just rub down, you need, again, like ice, the poultice needs contact to the skin. If you rub down, you do not guarantee that that poultice has gone through all the web of hair to get to the skin. So properly done, what you do is you take your poultice first and you go up, and then you go down. Because again, the key is contact, and the only way you can guarantee that is going up first and then down. Then you put your paper or your paper towel or whatever, and you wrap. Along with poulticing and bandaging, the other thing that we do after we show is we pack their feet. We pack their feet with boiled linseed oil. We have a tea kettle, heat the water to boiling, and then we pour it in a bucket with linseed or flax seeds. I have a video that I've done before about how we do that. And then we put the boiled flax seeds in the hoof. We put a diaper over it and then a bunch of duct tape to hold it in place. That helps soften the hoof and reduce inflammation in the hoof as well. Think of it a little bit like poultice, but for the hoof. A lot of people use Magic Cushion or other products like that. Flaxseed is more effective and it's cheaper. So, yeah. So in summary, really, we just do those 4 things. We ice, we poultice, we wrap, and we pack their feet with boiled flaxseed. Again, the key is the timing of everything that makes it as functional as possible. If you're trying to reduce inflammation by putting ice on, but you're 6 hours after the class, well, you've allowed 6 hours for whatever inflammation to come. It's the timing that really matters. There's no grand secret here. There's no grand formula. It's about proper execution and proper timing.